Joyce, all right, lay it out for us. Where does the classified documents case stand after today?
Right. So this was sort of an ugly win for the government. It was a win. The judge did not buy Trump's motion to dismiss, but she virtually invited Trump to raise this motion again during trial when more of the evidence is available. And of course, the downside to that is decisions that the judge makes after the jury has been impaneled and the case has started can't be reviewed. That's because of double jeopardy. It says that once the government has got a jury in the box and the case is underway, if the government loses, that's final. So at that point in time, Judge Cannon could look at this motion again, could decide that the evidence merits that she grants it, and the case would be over. And that's probably the worst possible outcome of these motions for the government beyond an outright dismissal now, which they could have, of course, appealed at this point in time.
There were a number of things that happened in court today, Joyce, and one of them was that Judge Cannon really seemed at points to kind of nudge the conversation to a place where Trump lawyers could compare the Biden document case and this Trump case. I'm wondering what you thought of that.
Right. So, look, this isn't an appropriate thing for a judge to do, and it certainly can't form the basis for any of her rulings. She's supposed to consider the merits of the case in front of her. Sometimes judges can look at other cases and decide what the results in those cases dictate in a case that they're considering. But in this situation, a decision was made that Joe Biden should not be prosecuted. And those sorts of decisions about who to prosecute are uniquely within the area of responsibility of prosecutors and the Justice Departments. Judges don't get to decide who gets indicted and who doesn't get indicted. They're supposed to rule on the cases in front of them, on the merits of those cases. If she strays in any way from that, that could form the basis for a government's appeal.
Mm-hmm. You know, Eugene, it is a full-time job to keep up with all of these cases. Literally, there are legal reporters dedicated to the Trump trial beat. These hearings, these trials, especially as Donald Trump tries to have them delayed or thrown out altogether. With 8 months to go until the election, how do you see this classified documents case specifically shaking out?
Well, it's getting frustrating for voters. I was speaking with swing voters last night with the Axios Swing Voter Project, and it's reminding them of who Donald Trump was. And this is not what he wants if he's going to try to win people outside of his base, which is what he needs to do in key states. I know part of his strategy is to turn out the base, thinking that there are enough of them to get him to the Oval Office. But the numbers don't support that. And these cases are reminding people who maybe even voted for Trump before what could happen if they send him back to Washington.
Peter, I mean, swing voters not liking and the Axios focus groups not liking what they are hearing about these cases. Now, the right does want to keep as much attention on the Biden documents case as possible. The Biden campaign and the White House, I don't think they talk very much about Donald Trump's legal woes last I checked. Do you expect that asymmetry to change at all?
No, I think the Biden people want to stay away from talking directly about Trump's legal cases because they don't want to feed into the conspiracy theory that Trump promotes with his base, which is that this is all somehow a Biden-orchestrated witch hunt. There's no evidence of that, of course, and they don't want to give any evidence by looking like he has something to do with it, so he won't talk about it. But you're right to say that the Republicans are trying to conflate the Biden classified documents issue with the Trump classified documents issue, which is why, of course, it was such a problem for the president that he got involved in this in the first place, because it allows them to muddy the water. You heard that this week at the congressional hearing involving Robert Hur, the special counsel who investigated the president and decided that there was no crime to prosecute there against him for his handling or mishandling of classified documents. But you're going to hear this again and again, whether inside the courtroom, as Joyce says, perhaps not legitimately, but outside the courtroom, you hear it a lot. Why aren't they prosecuting the president when he did the same thing I did? Even, of course, as we all know, that the actions that the two different presidents took were radically different. And that's a problem, I think, for prosecutors, and it's really a problem in terms of the political conversation.
Well, Eugene, you had Biden on the trail today in Michigan, Donald Trump in a courtroom in Florida There are other court cases. How is the campaign planning to handle the demands of this legal schedule? Whenever that Manhattan case gets going, the hush money case, Donald Trump will have to be in court for every day of that trial.
He will. Well, they have said that they're going to rely heavily on surrogates to go out to talk to people, you know, when Trump cannot. Also, his relationship with conservative media is going to serve him well. There'll be quite a few interviews that he'll probably use to try to make the case that he's being targeted, despite there not being evidence of that. But he's also going to try to have rallies when he can, because he loves the rallies and they energize him and they allow him to get his message directly to people, to the people he wants to come out and support him. I think what's going to be really interesting, though, is whether or not he has the stamina for all of this. There's been a lot of attention paid on whether or not Joe Biden can keep up with his campaign schedule. Trump has a campaign and a court schedule, and he has age issues as well, according to many voters. And so this is going to give him an opportunity to prove whether or not he can be what they need him to be for 4 more years, what he needs people to believe he can be for 4 more years. And it might put it to the test in a negative way that backfires.
Campaigning from the courtroom. I mean, Joyce, you are a U.S. attorney. I had to get, when I heard that you were coming tonight, I wondered, what did Joyce think when she heard that New York's U.S. attorneys are the reason, the people to thank for an expected delay in that hush money case? We were all looking to start on March 25th.
So, look, I have more questions about this than answers, and I think it's important that we not get too far ahead of ourselves. What we know is that Donald Trump filed a motion to dismiss or at least delay this prosecution, claiming that there had been discovery violations. And the Manhattan DA fired back and said, we've fulfilled our discovery violations. The problem is that Donald Trump wanted some documents from the Southern District of New York. Federal prosecutors in Manhattan aren't in any way a part of this case, but Trump issued a subpoena to them, and they've delayed in turning over these documents. The Trump lawyers apparently agreed to multiple delays, but now they're saying that they want a continuance in the trial. The Manhattan DA, I think, has done the right thing here. He said there are some documents that need to be reviewed fairly by the defense. We'll agree to a 30 days delay. And if the Manhattan DA's assessment of this new information holds up, there are tens of thousands of pages of documents that he says under 200 pages are relevant to this case, and they're mostly witness testimony. That probably means information about folks like Michael Cohen or perhaps former Trump CFO Alan Weisselberg. If 30 days can cure the problem here, then Judge Marchand will go ahead and reset the case for trial, and we'll be back off to the races. But there are some unanswered questions here.
Lots of unanswered questions, lots of documents to review. Peter Baker, we are waiting for the judge in the Georgia case, particularly in terms of Fani Willis and that hearing that we all saw on national television, to see where he comes down with that ruling. Today, the House Judiciary Committee, which is led by Jim Jordan, they actually threatened to hold DA Fani Willis in contempt. And they said they were doing so because she didn't comply with their subpoena. Now she has 2 weeks to respond to the chairman of the committee. Donald Trump's allies on the Hill, they seem to be trying to find any way they can to help Donald Trump. How much of this kind of thing do you think will ramp up as we continue to get closer and closer to November?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously Congress has a limited role in overseeing any kind of state prosecution. It's not their job to monitor what Fani Willis does. That's up to the voters of Georgia, perhaps the state government of Georgia. But she doesn't answer to the federal government in a general sense. Obviously, they're trying to do what Trump is trying to do, which is throw sand in the gears. Throw sand in the gears in every which way you can possibly do it. Have a motion to dismiss because the Espionage Act is too vague. Have a motion to delay because you need to see these papers in New York. Have a motion to disqualify the prosecutor because she had some sort of a conflict of interest with a man she was dating. All of these things have managed to successfully, derail to some extent first the 3 of these cases, and now it looks like even the 4th one is having at least a little bit of a hiccup as a result. Doesn't mean that he's going to get off when it actually gets to trial. Doesn't mean that any of these cases will go away, but he has successfully managed at this point now to delay, it looks like, all 4 of them to some extent. And that's his goal here, to delay, see if he can't push these things off until after the election when he might be able to deal with them as a sitting president, or at the very least push them so far close to the election that he can then argue that it's inappropriate to have a trial right before the vote, or if he does have the trial, say to the voters, look what they're doing to me, it's all a witch hunt.
Sounds just like Trump's strategy. Eugene, in the little bit of time we have left, I've got 30 seconds. You've been reporting on TikTok. Yeah. There's a bill that passed the House that could ban TikTok unless they sell it. The owners of TikTok sell. Where does it stand in the Senate? Well,
senators are taking their time with it. It won't pass as quickly as it has in the House, and that's because the pushback has been significant from so many constituents on both sides of the aisle. Although there are Democrats and Republicans, I think of Mark Warner from Virginia and Marco Rubio from Florida, who have come out expressing support for it because there are real valid national security issues and concerns. But they're trying to figure out how can they address those. Lawmakers want to address those without hurting so many Americans who rely on TikTok for business and their way of life and for fun.
My searches about things that have nothing to do with the news will continue on TikTok for now. Lawrence Fishburn has had a long and extraordinary career, first coming to our attention in Apocalypse Now at the age of 15. Since then, he starred in films such as Boys in the Hood, What's Love Got to Do with It, and The Matrix, not to mention award-winning roles on Broadway and television. But now he is doing something different. He's written and is performing in a one-man show about his own life at the Perelman Arts Center in Lower Manhattan. It's called Like They Do in the Movies. For tonight's keynote, Stephanie sat down with him to talk about the show and why now.
So you have been in movies, in television shows. You have won multiple Emmys. You've been nominated for an Oscar. You've won a Tony. Why a one-man show?
Why a solo show?
Yes.
Because believe it or not, there are things in this solo show that I've written that I get to do that I wouldn't be able to do anywhere else in the way that I'm going to do them. There are things that I get to share with the audience that I haven't shared with people before, and it feels like the most appropriate way for me to do it.
You describe it, you say they are the stories and lies people told me and the lies I've told myself.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like, I used to have this lie that I told myself that I think probably a lot of people can relate to, which is that I was the center of the universe.
You are. You are.
Not even close. Just this tiny speck in all of this. Yeah. Yeah.
You started writing this 20 years ago.
Yeah, about 20 years
Why
ago.
now? Why did you decide this is the moment to share my story?
I didn't really decide that. It just sort of organically happened. I was encouraged to write a one-man show. I didn't want to do it as an actor. The writer in me did it anyway. I showed it to somebody who said, oh, okay, great. But I didn't get the message that what he was actually saying was, it's great, you should do that. I thought he was saying, don't quit your day job. So I stuck it in a drawer.
Because it's really vulnerable.
Yeah, so I stuck it in a drawer and it sat there for 15 years and then I pulled it out and I was like, hey, this, And then I thought, maybe I should add some personal stuff to this and really make myself as vulnerable as possible. That's a good idea. So that's kind of where I'm at.
How much pressure did you put on yourself? Because you have always said diverse voices, diverse stories matter, characters that you've played, right? Whether we're talking about the dad in Boys in the Hood, Malcolm X, Mandela. Have you felt a responsibility to be that example?
Absolutely. I feel like I've always tried to represent the group that produced me in the best possible way. I've tried, I mean, listen, Black stories have been a theme of my work, of my life, all my life. I haven't been Black half my life. I've been Black all my life. And I understand this idea that you can't be what you can't see. And so as an actor, I have the opportunity to perform, obviously, to entertain, yes, but also to educate, to inform, to influence, to inspire. And so that's what I've tried to do.
You have played heroes
and
villains.
You've
played villains.
Yes.
What do you prefer?
I just like to play, honey. I'm a player. I like to play. It's not about whether it's heroes or villains. It's about playing human beings. It's about playing characters and really, really showing their humanity.
Well, in doing this project, you cover a lot.
Yes.
You dig deep and you talk about your personal life.
Yeah.
You talk about your personal challenges.
Yeah.
How did you make that decision and why? Because that, just standing on a stage for 2 hours and saying, love me, audience, that's vulnerable enough.
Yeah,
but
it
you're
is.
saying,
I'm
love
saying
all of me, the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly.
I'm just exposing some things about myself that people would not suspect. And I felt like that was the necessary thing to do at this point in my life. You know, I am someone who has lived on the planet for 60 some odd years. I have had a great life. I have had an incredible career, and I've had my challenges like everybody else. I have, you know, nobody gets out of here alive, and nobody gets out of here without some kind of struggle, without learning something. We're here to learn, I think. So I'm sharing some of the lessons that I've learned. And I think the largest lesson, the most important one anyway, is acceptance and forgiveness.
Of yourself?
Of everyone.
Then how did you decide what of yourself, your personal struggles, to share?
It was very simple. I just took a look at my life and went, oh, yeah, I need to share this.
What has that done for you personally?
I'm about to find out. I'm about to find out.
Is your true love in being a show person theater? You're coming back to theater after doing
theater
so much.
Theater is church for actors. You know, they say that television is the writer's medium, directing is the filmmaking is the director's medium, and theater is the actor's medium.
How much
so
of
I'm
an
in
honor?
church.
How much of an honor for you? Of all the things you've done, how do you feel about this project?
I'm super excited. I get to be back here in Lower Manhattan, where I started working in the theater as a boy, telling my story, telling some other stories that people are not really going to expect, and hopefully they'll enjoy them.
Are you scared?
Am I scared of what?
Putting yourself out there in this way.
No.
Right? When you have the big screen, you're protected. Now, you're going to be able to see the eyeballs of everyone listening to your personal story.
That's right.
You're not scared of that?
No. No. There's no reason to be afraid of a bunch of people who've come to see you.
One thing that that's fair. They pay the money. They're interested.
There's no reason to be afraid of that.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Thank
Stephanie.
you.